Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today we've got a fired up Bryce Simon because we're going to talk about the NBA Draft Combine. But first, we're going to talk about NBA playoffs and what we've missed over the course of the last few days. We'll start with Nikola Jokic's dominance. We're going to talk about Jalen Brunson. We're going to talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander crawling Oklahoma City back into this series against Dallas. It's going to be a really fun show. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
Sam, I was sitting here wondering, I wonder if people would actually enjoy our pre-production stuff better than our actual production, where it's just like unfiltered, uncensored, me and you talking about stuff that would definitely doesn't need to be on the airways, but I feel like it's just great content.
Yeah, like people tend to think like I like let it fly on this thing, like because I will just kind of say what's on my mind for the most part. Yeah, no. I'm pretty filtered on this thing for the most part. So yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to start with Nikola Jokic because they are now up 3-2, the Denver Nuggets in this series against Minnesota. They've won the last 3 games after going down 2-0 in the first 2 home games in Denver. They have retaken home court advantage, consolidated home court advantage now. And I guess where I want to start before we dive into the tape, because we're going to talk a lot about Jokic here and what he was doing. I do want to start on the defensive side of the court really quickly with Denver. We're not going to talk about that like in depth with tape, but I do want to say that I've really enjoyed some of the adjustments they've made just to kind of like help down and cut off angles for Anthony Edwards to drive and make him a little bit more crowded in that mid-range area. As he tries to drive, they're basically trying to make Anthony Edwards a passer
100%.
And crowding him in that mid-range area. And I think that's so smart. Like people, I know that Michael Malone said that, NBA playoff series, they're won by dudes executing and playing well, not necessarily by adjustments. But I really do think Michael Malone has coached a really remarkable series over the course of these last 3 games, particularly in terms of adjusting to get Jokic a little bit looser and to get him more isolated on Rudy Gobert, which I think is a little bit better of a matchup for him. And then on top of it, on defense, being able to make Anthony Edwards a passer. Last night, I will say, I do think they really missed Mike Conley, though.
Sure.
Mike Conley's ability to initiate the offense and to be like a real shooter who can handle the ball. He's just a little bit higher level than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Seeing, Na out there, for as much love as we have given Nickeil, and he deserves a ton of flowers for how great he's been defensively. I do think that you can see the difference in terms of where he is offensively right now versus where someone like Mike Conley is.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, Conley's probably the best perimeter player you would want on the Wolves in terms of getting the pass out of an Ant double team. And either Conley's able to catch and knock down that shot. Conley can attack a closeout still, even at his age, or he makes the one more pass, whatever the right decision ends up being. I thought that's perfectly said, Sam. I remember watching a game a couple games ago in the series and going, man, Ant has been awesome. 2-way player. The passing is still a little bit suspect. Some of the decisions are still suspect, whether when he decides to pass and it's off target or he decides not to pass. So I thought the Nuggets, I would be interesting to know, was last game was the first one where they really doubled him as often as what they did, right? I wonder if that was a Mike Conley thing or was it as much? It seemed like last night was a little more. Am I wrong with that?
I don't even know if it's like straight doubles a lot of the time. Like to me, it's just like, they are really cutting off angles,
really loading up.
Yeah, they're loading up the lane as he drives and like really heavy helping off of him and being like, okay, Ant, you got to show us that you can make high level passing reads and like hit guys directly in their shooting pocket to be able to like make a play like this. like
maybe it was
is
just a
interesting.
little more aggressive. And I just wonder
Yeah.
if Conley being out was maybe part of that because of his
Yeah.
decision-making, his ability to knock down shots. And listen, I'm sure we're going to talk about these guys. I just want to shout one, Aaron Gordon. I know he's going to be a big part of this episode. Justin Holiday, I feel like, has been really good in this series. And Christian Brown has been really good as well. So I just wanted to give those guys a quick shout out. I know at some point we'll bring up their names and they'll be a part of the film breakdown, but we're about to shower Jokic with love. And so, and KCP's defense as well. But, you know, Justin Holiday wasn't a guy I had on my bingo card as being a huge difference maker in this series. And he's been really, really good.
This all comes down to Jokic, though.
Oh, 100%.
Like you said. And the ways that they're getting Jokic the ball and the ways that they've adjusted to get Rudy Gobert out on the perimeter as opposed to around the basket in help situations. A huge part of Minnesota's defense throughout a big portion of the season has been allowing Rudy Gobert just to be that menacing help defender across the court. And I think that what we've seen throughout the course of this series to this point is that they have really tried to make Rudy play one-on-one against Nikola Jokic, which is something that everybody struggles to do. And that takes him out of help, which allows the rest of Denver's guys to be able to have a little bit more space to operate. So let's just kind of break down the tape. I mean, I also want to talk about one other factor that we'll get into as we go, but a big piece of the equation here is just that Nikola Jokic is unstoppable. Like, we need to say that up front. You can't stop this guy from getting to his spots and getting where he wants. He is the most skilled basketball player in the NBA right now. He's probably the most skilled basketball player to play since, I don't know, like Larry Bird, right? Whatever you want to say about like Bird versus Jokic, whatever. But the touch, the creativity, the footwork, all of it is there. And he's just impossible. He's an impossible problem to solve. So like this one, right? I love how they set this up just with this little opening pin down off of this. This is 8 minutes left in the first. This little opening pin down action where they run this all the time.
I say we had this the last breakdown, Sam. I think we broke this exact set down.
100%. They run this like little exchange where it's hard for the defense to tell who's getting the pin down. Is it Porter getting a pin down for, you know, him to come up, or is it, you know, Porter setting a back screen for Jokic to like try and post, right? It just creates that little bit of momentary separation and confusion. And the big thing that is worth pointing out here again is by putting Jokic on the ball here at 24 feet from the rim, you're pushing Rudy Gobert 24 feet from the rim when Gobert is matched up on him. So this one, it just ends up being kind of an empty side. And we're going to talk a little bit about Gobert throughout the course of this, you know, breakdown. My overall takeaway is Gobert like gets punished way too easily here and gives up this positioning too easily. He lets Jokic get too deep here, in my opinion. If your feet are completely in the restricted zone, it's a problem against Jokic, especially when he's starting out here and he's 24 feet from the rim and he's driving and putting his shoulder into you, as opposed to like, okay, he just like kind of sealed you high and like, you know, it was off the ball and you were trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say surprised isn't the right word. Just Jokic's ability to knock Gobert off of him in these situations has happened consistently. Like he's able to get it, like just there, he created separation, does it. Gobert or anybody else is done for now, Sam, because Jokic can just turn and shoot with the soft touch. If you lunge at him, then he has all this footwork stuff like he's showing off now. The answer is Gobert has to hold his ground better when Jokic puts his shoulder into him, but that just comes down to a functionality strength thing that Gobert must just not have at the end of the day, as good as he is. And then you're just at Jokic's mercy, after that.
And like, we can talk about the fact that coming into this game, Nikola Jokic was 11 for 28 against Rudy Gobert as a primary defender. He went 8 for 9 last night against Gobert. And that's really, really important to note. And I think that it's a huge factor about what has happened so far in this series. I just think that it's okay to criticize Rudy Gobert. I think Gobert did a great job contesting. Like, this is an unbelievable contest.
Absolutely.
For anybody else, this is a great contest. Look at where he is. He's making this thing hard. But against Jokic, to me, the whole battle is positioning.
Yep.
The whole battle is keeping him off of this spot. I kind of why Karl Towns, in using Rudy to come over and help. And I'm not saying Towns has done like some incredible job, because I think a big part of the issue has been that Towns has gotten in foul trouble in these games. But a big factor is just him being able to get deep like that.
Can you go back? I want to see how Gobert guards him at the start. So Jokic just attacks this closeout and gets into, because like that's where Gobert needs to win a little bit better.
And but this is the sin here in my opinion, is that he goes under this.
Yeah.
Initially, he goes under this exchange here because that's what he's used to doing. That's what Rudy does. Like, he's a under and drop big, right?
Yep, sure.
Or an over and drop big if he's in ball screen coverages where the guard goes over, right? Creating this much separation and this much of a closeout here for him to get back to Jokic when Jokic ends up stepping behind the 3-point line here, it's just too much space.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit too much space, I think, for him to cover. And then he has to try and navigate Porter's body as well. It's a really good set. It's a really good action, but like, yeah.
Right there at the elbow, I think, is where Rudy has to try to give a little bit more. Right here, he's not bad. I think this is where he needs to try to hold his ground. But to your point, he's already trying to make up because of the long around Michael Porter Jr. and a closeout because Jokic can shoot it a little bit, and he just doesn't have his ground. Right there is where Gobert lost to me. If he could have stopped him at the elbow, he has a little bit more of a chance. But now Jokic got to the middle of the lane, knocked him off once, knocked him off again. And to your point, I think this is a credit to Gobert being a really good defender, is still getting that sort of contest on him. But Jokic is who Jokic is.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's quite interesting to watch these two try and battle against one another. Again, this is like the next possession down the court here. They run these little exchanges, these little like rub screens, right? This is an empty side one. In this one, you've got Gobert up high on him, does like a pretty good job, in my opinion. Jaden McDaniels does a great job kind of getting over the top, and I think he might have even got a piece of that ball. And then Rudy just like totally loses Gobert here. Like this one is like completely on Rudy in my 100%. Opinion. Like, he just gets way too high in his positioning, and Jokic recognizes it and just beats him to the spot. And this is where Towns has to rotate over. Towns is timely, but like this is, I mean, maybe you would want Towns to be there a very, very split second earlier. But like, this is on Rudy for putting Towns in this spot and putting Towns in foul trouble. And this is just a bad situation at that point.
Yep.
You need to be able to stop Jokic. You need both of these guys, both Rudy and Karl, on the court. And I know that they did it in game 2. That was a weird fucking game that I don't think will happen again.
Well, I mean, we all said it was Naz Reid's like best defensive performance of his career, and probably wasn't replicatable. Like, is that a word? Replicatable? Yep. Sounds good to me. Replicable. Yeah. What am I doing? Goodness. Okay. And he hasn't been able to do it.
So this one, another little rub action. They're just running these to death, right? They're just trying to confuse the space with Gobert in a real way. And now on the block, and he's just like burying him. He's like, guys, I get it that Rudy is a great defender, and he's definitely the best help defender in the NBA, right? And in today's NBA, where help defense is so critical, and ground coverage and the ability to rotate one end of the paint to the other is so critical, Rudy is the best at it right now. He's the best drop coverage big because he's so long and so active. And he's the whole reason that they have the number 1 defense in the NBA. I am comfortable with there being a little bit of criticism for him giving up his positioning this easy.
Yeah.
And getting buried a foot away from the rim.
I agree.
By Jokic.
Yeah.
I just am. Like, I know that Rudy, like, I don't want to take away from Rudy's greatness. And I think it's worth discussing Jokic's greatness within this, Jokic's ability to bury Rudy in this spot. But Rudy's got to be able to give a little bit too here, I think.
I would agree. Like, at the end of the day, you would hope that your anchor of the defense at his size is able to hold up better. I'm glad you put all these in here, because I think these little exchanges and stuff, whether
they're
it should
not
or
full
not,
screens, they're like little rub actions where they just confuse the space a little bit. And like, by the way, like Ant, I don't think navigates these super well yet.
I thought he was pretty bad off the ball early in this game, to be quite honest. Off the ball.
Yeah.
Like, on the ball, he's a really good defender. He'll lock in, all of that. I thought he had one, I think it was a sideline out of bounds, where the Nuggets ended up getting a layup also, because he tried to switch when he had no reason to switch, or similar. Like, here, I guess, is kind of the opposite, where does he think Gobert is going to navigate it? I don't know. Murray's doing a good job.
Gobert like tries to get over the top here, thinking it's going to be like a true empty, right? So he's thinking this is just like it's almost like a pistol action, like an inverted pistol, which is like fucking crazy to think about, where Jokic is going to try and get downhill into all this space. And he tries to like shoot over the top of it here early, because he has to do everything early, because he's enormous, and, you know, has to be able to try and anticipate to be able to beat players to the spot. And he just guesses wrong on this one, right? And Jokic just crosses over. This is where realistically Ant has to kind of be available. And Rudy, again, like, Rudy goes too early here, right? He does. And this is just like a wide open lane. And again, look at all the pressure you're putting on Karl Towns, having to rotate all the way across the play. If I was them, I don't really know why they opened the game with Rudy on Jokic. I did like the Towns. I know that like Jokic got him in foul trouble, and like that was probably why they wanted Towns' offense out there. They wanted, you know, the ability to keep Towns out there and keep him out of foul trouble. But I do really think that the way that they have a chance to win this is Rudy is the help defender, and Towns, you know, bodying up and trying to not foul Jokic, because there's a lot of pressure on him there. He's late, like undeniably late, but there's just a lot of pressure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, think about all these clips too, and how open the lane is because of the way Justin Holiday has knocked down shots. Obviously, Jamal Murray and his gravity, Michael Porter Jr. And then when Aaron Gordon is making shots and doing what he's been doing, you hug up just a little bit more. You know, Gordon is almost 40% from three in the entirety of the playoffs. And so all of that combines for just really tough defense. And I feel like they did that a little bit with Gordon as well. When Rudy was on Gordon, they started letting Gordon almost play the point guard. Like, think how good this team is whenever you have your two bigs that can both essentially play point guard if you need them to get guys on the floor where you want them. Tips it to himself.
I mean, that's just like Naz Reid can't guard him. Like, there's no way to do it. Like, he just gets such early deep post position here. Look at where Jokic's left foot is here. It's already in the restricted area, and we are 18 seconds left on the shot clock.
Yep.
Like, that's just it's just not doable for Minnesota, unfortunately. He pushes them out, but yeah, I mean, that's just disgusting from Jokic. Again, now we've got Kyle Anderson on Jokic. Kyle Anderson's a really good defender. Kyle Anderson is just a little bit too small for him, unfortunately. This is just like an awesome empty ball screen. This is when you try to put two on the ball on the empty side, right? So they run this action, try to put two on the ball, and then just the slip to the rim by Reggie Jackson. Like, this is just nasty, nasty offense that is exceptionally difficult to guard. Now we're in like 5-4 ball screen action from Jokic and Gordon, where Gordon's coming up, setting this early screen, and, you know, Jokic is going to come off of it. You're making Towns and Gobert guard on the perimeter. I mean, this is obscene, right? And then like nobody is super active here, but they do a good job of cutting it off. And then the screen into rescreen empty side action, as always, from these two. It creates a switch, which is key there.
Yep.
If you're going to end up doing this like screen into rescreen stuff when Gobert is on Jokic, you're probably going to end up with matchups where it's a peel because Ant is going to take like a weird angle around screens. And then you've just got Jokic on Ant, and that's, Ant's strong, but there's just no chance with his positioning. Like he's going to seal him, and he's going to be it's going to be way too easy to score. This is just a hilarious one that I put on. He just sees immediately that Christian Brown after the make is leaking. Think about how quickly you have to diagnose. Think about how quickly you have to count the Minnesota guys here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and see that your guy here is streaking down the lane. Like you have to count all of those early and process that as quickly as possible to recognize that I can throw this like way out there, let him run onto it and score. Just absurd stuff. Next, I think that they actually do like a fairly good job here in Minnesota of avoiding an Ant cross match onto Jokic. But the problem is that now you've got Jaden McDaniels on him, and that's still not a great matchup. Gobert recognizes that he has to be available to help over because, he just has to be in this spot, right? Like there's just no, Jaden McDaniels is a great defender on the ball, but there's just no chance he's going to be able to guard Jokic on the block. Ant is out there. Is that
it's Reggie Jackson? No, that's
what I thought. I thought it was Reggie, but it might be Justin Holiday. I don't know who that is.
It almost looks like Reggie's on this wing, so that might be Holiday over there.
Yeah, you're right. But Aaron Gordon recognizes this. Aaron Gordon is one of the best cutters in the NBA, one of the best, smartest, people at reading his defender. Yeah. And when his defender goes over in to help, as soon as Rudy turns his back, Aaron's just available, right? And he knows that he's going to be available, and he knows he's going to be able to get the ball from Jokic because Jokic is going to find the angle underneath Rudy's arms with a pass fake to get it like between his legs, for fuck's sake. Like, I don't know how he's going to do it. I guess that like you kind of just need Ant to tag down here, and then you're like rotating across.
I was gonna say, I think if Ant tags, if he throws it out, you have Anderson, then Monte Morris, and then McDaniels would rotate out to Christian Brown. And I don't think it's that bad of a rotation here.
It's not, but it's, it's Ant. You're putting a lot of pressure on Ant in that case.
Sure. For
sure. Like you would love to see Ant help the helper here and like be available, but it's a lot of pressure on Ant, and he needs to make it. It's a rotation he needs to make. It's undeniably, like, to me, the two places where Anthony Edwards, where we've seen in these last couple of games where he needs to grow as a passer and playmaker, which we've talked about throughout the year. I thought he got better throughout the course of the season, and I think that stuff will come for him. It's also as a help defender, and that's where they've kind of been able to take advantage of some situations, unfortunately. For Minnesota in these last 3 games. This one, again, Jokic just running the court. I think they've done a better job getting up tempo. Denver too finds Christian Brown as the trailer there. Just Jokic being able to process things quicker than everybody else. Now you got Kyle Anderson on him again. Kyle Anderson, I don't totally know why Anderson is playing so far off of Jokic here.
I think he got screened early in the possession, but then he never gets locked back in. He almost looks like he got confused. So early they set the little right there. They screen him.
But why are you like, I guess that they've probably told Minnesota guys, so I'm not going to kill Kyle Anderson for this. They've probably told Minnesota guys, hey, go under all of these early Jokic screens to try and be available to like stop him in any way that you can from establishing position, right? But Jokic here goes over, sets this screen after this. So he's essentially like, it's like screen the screener kind of in a way.
Yep.
But like Kyle's like in no man's land here. It's like, it's not quite like it's like almost a ram screen. It's like a side ram screen into a ball screen. And it just kind of confuses Minnesota on what to do. But then, like, yeah, like you said, like Kyle just never gets reattached.
Yep.
And Jokic just bangs this three. You can see how confused early on in this possession that Ant and Rudy are as they try to navigate this one, right? So Rudy is already detached from Jokic here. Brown is setting a screen onto Rudy, and Ant, I think, is like trying to be early, maybe. No, I think he's still trying to understand what's happening here. Like Ant has his head turned here that way while the ball is over here and Jokic is here. Why? And he's still looking that way. Why is Anthony Edwards looking that way? Can you explain that to me?
I cannot. So I'm trying to figure out, like, he's like watching Gobert get screened Gobert get screened, but not doing anything about it. It wasn't like he called out a switch when he saw Gobert get hung up. He didn't step out. Like, his only chance of guarding Jokic here would be to get out and deny. Brown sets a really good screen on Gobert. And again, it's good stuff from the Nuggets, making Gobert navigate off-ball screens and all. But Ant is literally in no man's land right now. He's not attached to Brown. He's not guarding Jokic. His hands are down.
Like, is he trying to find his man? Maybe Monte like communicated a screen, and like he's like trying to like keep an eye on Jokic while also like getting back into the play.
It looked like at the beginning they were a little lost. I don't know. It'd be interesting to know if this was after a make or a miss, but it looked like at the very start of the possession they were already a little scrambled on matchups. Because
this is one
he didn't even.
Now it's like empty side against Gobert, and like honestly, this is one where I have no complaints about what Rudy does defensively. Yeah. This one's fine to me. Like, he just turns the corner on him, right, and he tries to pin him against the baseline, and his footwork's just so good that he's able to get the angle on him. It's just really like, that's just sick from Jokic. That's not one where I will blame Rudy. Now this one, Rudy, classic drop coverage. And now you're just like isolated on Jokic. And I mean, you actually did a great job there being able to get the deflection. It's back out. He sets the screen for Murray. You just have to be so locked in against him all the time. You have to be so locked in against Jokic for literally every second that he's on the court. Like, Gobert really should probably be available here.
Should he not be dropping here? Like, what did he just?
So this is one where I'm going to give Rudy like a little bit of latitude.
Okay.
Because we know that Jokic can reject these handoffs like nobody's business, right? And if Rudy, we just complained about Rudy, anticipating over on the earlier possession that was over on this side, right?
Yep.
Where like he anticipated that he had to get over. Like, he kind of does have to stay attached, and you kind of have to like rotate off of what I would like to see here. If we're going to do it that way, where you want Gobert staying attached, Monte being a guy who's guarding Christian Brown, has to be the guy to rotate over. And whoever's guarding Christian has to be the one to like be in the paint immediately.
And I know people are going to scream, you don't help off strong side corner. Well, in the playoffs against the Nuggets, you got to give up something. And if I'm going to give up something in this situation, I'll give up a strong side help and pill switch, because McDaniels could still get there and contest if they pill it.
Correct.
But if I have a Christian Brown, and he's a Kansas kid, I love him to death. But if I have a Christian Brown corner three with Jaden McDaniels screaming at him for a closeout, I'll take that over just about anything else that can happen in this play.
1,000% right. Again, early rub screen action, and now they've got Towns on Jokic. But
this is okay. Maybe I don't want to get after Ant too much, so maybe I don't want to overreact here.
Yeah, he's just asleep.
Yeah,
he's just not.
If you're not going to double, you might as well be hugged up to MPJ.
Or like
have a handout or something.
Yeah, have a handout. You can't have both hands down here in this circumstance against Jokic. When
you can tell by his body language, his response to the pass, that he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for the pass. You can tell by the way he reacts after the fact.
And like, if it was late in the second quarter or something, I might late in the first, if he's had like a long rotation, I'll give him a little bit of latitude. But like, 10:33 left on the clock. He's been playing for under 90 seconds at that point. Like that's just not enough engagement, in my opinion, coming directly out of halftime. Like
especially when the ball is in the best passer, one of the best passer in the NBA's hands, you have to always be ready.
100%. This one, I mean, they're just like so fucked up on how they want to handle transition stuff. Jokic is doing a great job here, in my opinion, of attaching himself to Jaden McDaniels, right? Making it so that Jaden thinks he's the one that has to pick him up, or at least making Jaden's teammates think
No, I thought he
Jaden's
was
gonna
going
be the
to
one to pick him up.
Yeah,
exactly right. But I think that Jaden wants to like be able to pass him off onto Rudy or Carl at all times. And, you know, easy pass, easy play there. Jokic this time, another one of those like little inverted, like pistol-y, like rub screen actions, right? Where, you know, you've got this 5-1 screen, 5-2 screen where KCP comes up, 2 on the ball, drills the 3. Like, it's just, you can do so much with him. This is the most laughable pass I've seen in the playoffs so far. Like, what are we? Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me with this one? Tips it to himself with one hand.
Never puts 2 hands on the ball, Sam.
Never looks down the other end of the court before he preps to throw this. Look at where he anticipates this.
He sees that Murray's doing the flyby closeout, so that's how quickly he processes things. He knows right now.
He sees it there. He looks. I think, sees here. I think he's looking at Nickeil Alexander-Walker here. I don't even think he's looking at Jamal here. And then he just sees Jamal last second and goes, yep, I'm just going to throw the home run pass. Yep.
That's a dot, too.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable that a human being can do that. Again, now we've got Towns on him. They get the switch with the screen. That's just an awesome action to get that switch. And this is the one that I think like completely broke everyone's brain.
His footwork is so nice.
It's so good. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me, Bryce? Look at this. Jokic comes down. I think Rudy actually does like a good job standing him up here after like that initial switch.
Yeah.
And it gets the great contest. This is one where I'm like, I am not blaming Rudy for a second of this play.
That's an insane shot.
Look at Rudy. Rudy's just like, what am I supposed to do? Like he's got his hands up. What am I supposed to do on this play? I don't know. I truly, like, I don't have an answer for you, Rudy.
That's the best compliment an offensive player can ever have. When a defender throws his hands up, you know you're doing something special.
Yep.
That's a great cut. He's done.
Yeah. Basically the same play they ran earlier where it's almost like a ghost action. It's not like quite a ghost, but he goes over like he's going to set this like corner screen.
And just slips
and then if Towns is too high, which he is, he just, slips it and goes. It's just so smart. He has like this understanding of guys like hips and like their positioning that like I don't think anybody that I've seen play basketball really has. Now we've got Naz Reid on him. I mean, this is just, he's too big for Naz Reid. Just is. Sorry. I like Naz Reid a lot, but he's too big. This one, again, you get like this early like 5-4 action. It looks like the tape kind of sped up.
Except it's almost 4-5 this time. They switched it this time.
It's 4-5. You're right. He like starts to Gortat in the paint to get Rudy away. Rudy lets him establish position a little bit too easily. Right. This one, now you've got Kyle Anderson on him. They don't switch it.
Interesting.
I mean, like, I just don't even know how one gets that ball up toward the rim. This one, you can see now Kyle Anderson again on the wing. We're into the end of the third quarter now. They just empty the play out. And yeah, I mean, it's too hard for Rudy to come over and make that rotation.
These
Kyle
last
has to be stronger.
I think these last two clips, Kyle knows he can't guard him, so he's just taking chances. Both of those, he went for steals, way overplayed. It was just like, I'm going to go for a home run defensive play because I know I can't just be solid and guard him.
Yep, that's right. This one here, it's like they look a little bit confused, Towns, here, in terms of like who's going to pick up. I think that they want Towns to start picking up Jokic in transition, and Rudy is just like kind of sitting in the paint. So Towns is like, what's going on? What's going on? He's got both arms up like, hey, who's guarding ball? Who's picking up ball? They all assume Karl's going to pick up ball, but my guess is that Towns has been told to pick up Jokic in transition and try to get a body on him early if he can. That's a guess. Like I'm not in their meetings, but
they've looked a little confused in quite a few of these clips though, Sam, like just scrambling a little bit to get their matchups. Excuse me.
And then this one, again, you're just pulling Rudy away from the basket, right? That's what this is all about. Getting Rudy away from the rim. And again, just one of those little mini rub actions. And I just don't even understand or fathom how one can make this shot from that angle. But it sets up as one of those, potential little rub actions where Rudy has to be super cognizant, super available, understand what's going on there. And I think he does about as good as you can. The second half, I think Rudy did quite well on Jokic. Jokic was just hot at that point. But this is why, like, you kind of can't let him get hot, right?
Yep.
Like, if he starts feeling it, it's curtains. And this is one that's just like gravity of Jokic, right? So this one, Ant like picks up Jokic in transition. It's like they're just trying to throw a lot of bodies at him. And this is a stunt from Towns, which tells me they're just trying to let Christian Braun be the one to beat them at this point, right? Trying to use Jokic or trying to use Gobert as the help man bites them in the ass. Then I think this is one of the last ones that we've got here. Early in transition to Gordon. And now empty turns into Christian Braun in the corner. Just all of these little actions that are so hard to guard. You pull Rudy away from the rim and he just bangs a three in his face. Like, I mean, what do you want? What do you want from him? Right. Yeah. Like Rudy did well in the second half. Like that's where I think people are giving Rudy credit or like, trying to absolve Rudy of blame. Right. And I think it's reasonable to absolve Rudy of some of that because it's greatness from Jokic. It's unbelievable play from Jokic. The problem is that I think Rudy's early errors that we kind of went through on tape there in the game got Jokic into rhythm.
Yep.
The way that the Timberwolves early in the first two games of the series bothered and hassled and got Jokic out of rhythm with doubles, with like weird little stunts and like using Jaden McDaniels' length to like kind of try and rake down on the ball and do things like that. They're going away from Jaden. Like that's a big piece here too. They're trying to keep Jaden out of the play, like in any way, shape, and form that they can. But I think that also I am comfortable blaming Rudy a little bit here in saying that the 4-time defensive player of the year should not let Nikola Jokic establish position on the, in the restricted area that easily.
I agree. I think at the end of the day, if we're going to talk about defensive player of the year and we're going to say he's the defensive player of the year and he's going to be 4-time and all those things, you hold those people to a certain standard, even against the best offensive player, the MVP,
and
all of that.
He does it to everybody. He does it to Anthony Davis too.
I was gonna say, that is a great point that let's just make sure we don't act like Anthony Davis or Bam Adebayo or whoever is stopping this guy either. And let's remember this guy's greatness. Like he went down 0-2, and I feel like people who were just begging for a reason to take shots at Nikola Jokic went all in on it. Like this is our opportunity. And not that he cares, but he's like, nope, I'm going to remind everybody over the next few games. So I agree with you. Like you hold Gobert to a certain standard and he should be held to that standard, even against somebody as good as Jokic. I think what's the most impressive to me, Sam, after those first two games, I was like, they have them so flustered. This Wolves defense has the Nuggets and whether the Wolves weren't able to continue it or the Nuggets were just able to kind of crack the code, like over that break, they were able to figure out, maybe it was just getting used to it. Maybe they got blitzed. Like we've all been in this where somebody comes out and guards you or does something to you in a way that you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this before. I'm not used to it. Makes you uncomfortable. But if you keep playing against it, eventually you do figure it out. And we should have all known that the best player in the game was going to eventually figure it out. And maybe the Wolves weren't able to sustain that throughout an entire series. It's not easy to have that type of energy for 7 games. I'm interested to see if we at least see it in game 6 again. Like if they're able to speed them up, pressure them, make them uncomfortable, a little more physical, at least in game 6 back at home.
Yeah, I'm willing to say that like Rudy needs to do a little bit better allowing him establishing position. He just has to.
Agreed.
He just has to.
That's fair.
The other thing that I want to talk about here is Aaron Gordon, because this has now become like a topic of conversation. We're not going to go like wildly long on this, but it is a fun exercise. The first person I saw bring this up was Sam Vecenie. Shout out the folks over at the Light Years podcast. But Sam brought up this idea of who the next Aaron Gordon is. And he framed it as guy miscast in a role as a star who might excel as the ultimate glue guy. And a lot of names have been filtered out in a way that I think is like pretty interesting. But the way Aaron Gordon has reinvented himself as one of the great role players in today's NBA that helps you win, this was like the ideal player that he was at Arizona when he came out of college. Like I think people saw some upside there, but to me, like this was always who Aaron Gordon was like meant to be. Do you have an answer to this? I think your answer is going to annoy people, unfortunately.
It is. And listen, I knew as soon as I came up with the name that Raptors fans were going to get pissed and they were going to hate me. And it's fine. Yeah. I look at it as a compliment because there's a chance Scottie Barnes excels in the role as star in Toronto. But what I think is the compliment is if he isn't, if you told me that in 2 years, they needed an Aaron Gordon replacement in Denver and Scottie as the number one hub of the offense wasn't working, I would say Denver should do everything they can to go trade for Aaron Gordon for Scottie Barnes and let him play that role. I just think his skill set would be phenomenal in that role as a low man, help defender, just do all of those things off the ball, even more energy to guard on the ball, cutting, passing out of those cuts, short roll, all of those things that we see Aaron Gordon be good at and great at, I think Scottie Barnes could. So if they want to take it as hate or disrespect, that's fine, whatever. For the question, it was the best answer I could come up with. And that's not me saying Scottie can't excel as a star. I just think he would be exceptional in this role as well.
I think Scottie is just way better than what Aaron has like ever was at that point. Scottie is just like a level above this. I totally agree with you. Like Scottie's there is a chance. I'm not saying that this is going to be the reality. I do think there is a chance that Scottie Barnes ends up as like the best third player on a title team in the NBA.
Sure.
If he finds like some incredible team to go to, I think that's plausible is like a trajectory, but Scottie's just like I think Scottie's way above the Aaron Gordon level. Scottie's just like way like the ability to put the ball on the deck, the point guard capabilities. Like if you want to say like Scottie could be like the next Draymond or something like that, where I think Draymond is one of the 75 best players ever. So I'm, saying that that's like Scottie's, upside, I guess, in theory, which I don't know that I like saying that, but that's a conversation in my own head to have a different time. Like I would hear that out because of the passing, the like playmaking and things like that. I just think Scottie's like a leveled up above this. Like Aaron Gordon was never an all-star. Scottie is, and look, you and I have been as questionable about Toronto's rebuild, I think, as many Toronto fans are, it seems like right now. But like, so for instance, like Basketball Genesis brings up, I also believe Scotty Barnes needs the ball in his hands to have value. People kind of thought that for a minute about Aaron Gordon. I will say that. Because Aaron, basically any of these guys that are big, 6'8", 6'9", like guys who can't really shoot it, right? People say this about them. I don't think Scotty needs the ball in his hands. I think he can be effective without the ball in his hands.
Here's the other thing. Like, we only have a finite amount of options here too. Whenever you're talking about guys that are cast in the role as a star, you're talking about what, 40 players max? Because some teams only have one. Some teams may not even have any. And so
you're also talking about a finite number of
archetypes.
Yeah, like finite number of role players, because there are only so many role players who are 6'8" to 6'9" athletes, which is why Aaron Gordon is so valuable, because he's so big, so strong, so physical.
Like, let me like, listen, because here's what I'm going to hear tomorrow is, oh, the Pistons guy would say this. Listen, I didn't bring up Cade Cunningham because I think Cade Cunningham only has one path to making it work, and it's as the guy.
Agree.
I don't think Cade Cunningham can go. I don't think his game goes and fits in this role because he's not super athletic. And I don't know that he would fit playing off the ball as the third option. And here's the other thing. I don't want to say Mikal Bridges as my first answer because we've already had this conversation.
I have two other answers.
And is he really miscast as a star? Like, he's just having to be the star because that's where he got traded and they haven't put another star on the team. So like, I think you have to look at guys who their organization and they like, this is the star. Like, this is the guy, we have chosen that. And so, I considered like top 10 picks was my idea here, basically. Okay. Like I limited it to top 10 picks who are like crazy athletes who I think could transition into something like this. Okay. I think it's way too early in Amen Thompson's career to limit what his capabilities are on the ball. But if you told me that Amen Thompson in 3 years is something like this, sure,
where he's just like a super help defender all over the place and a great on-ball defender and moves the ball incredibly well and is like one of the best transition players and is one of the best cutters in the league. Like, if you told me Amen Thompson was the next, guy like this, and honestly, given how twitchy he is, like, could very well, exceed what Aaron Gordon is. Honestly, like, Amen is a joke athletically in the same way that Aaron Gordon also is like a joke vertically, except Amen has like the crazy twitchiness around the perimeter and stuff, whereas Aaron's like, loading up and is like physical and strong. I think Amen is like a really good answer here. The other guy that struck me was Jeremy Sohan. Okay. Jeremy Sohan isn't, a guy that, the Spurs are utilizing as a star, right? But, as we talked about ad nauseum early in the season, they tried to play him at point guard for reasons beyond my comprehension, and it didn't go well. Sohan, this was always my archetype for Sohan, was like the Aaron Gordon role. Play him as off-ball cutter, unreal defender, does a great job on like bigger physical perimeter players, guards Nikola Jokic every time San Antonio plays them. Guys, to me, like Sohan, this was always my kind of ultimate, archetype for him.
Okay, so here's what I will say then. I limited myself a little bit more than what I needed to, because I agree with, especially with the men, I agree with that. I was only thinking of guys who are the stars on their team right now. Like, their organizations, their team are asking them to be the guy. And that's why I immediately went to Scotty. And so like now I'm trying to look through and see if there were other names I would have brought up otherwise that kind of have, like you say, that athleticism to do those things.
But like what I'll say about Aaron Gordon, right? So like Aaron Gordon in his third year in Orlando, like, they had guys at the time that were considered like interesting young players around him, right? Like that was, Nikola Vucevic, I think, was like 25, and Terrence Ross was 25, and Yvonne Fournier was there. And then the year before that, they had Victor Oladipo on that team, right? And like Victor, up until they moved him for Serge Ibaka, was like the lead scorer on that team, right? So, they drafted Vic at 2 overall, I think, right? So I think you can expand this out a little bit more, like just beyond like the number one guy on teams. You know what I mean?
No, and that's like, I wasn't doing that. So I was limiting myself to like Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, Mikal Bridges, LaMelo Ball, and Brandon Miller on the Hornets were the only guy. I'm not saying they have somebody. I'm just saying those were the only guys I was allowing myself to really look at. And that's why I kind of had limited, listen, like I'm just being playful here, but I was like, man, what if LeBron was in this role at this point in his career? Like he just went and played the Aaron Gordon role. He would be amazing. Or like, who would be like Zion doing this in that role, and all he has to do is catch lobs, offensive rebound, weak side rim protect. I realize that's not what those guys would ever be, and they're stars and all of that. I'm just having fun. Please don't like come at me. I just was like, oh, those guys would be awesome doing those things. Like LeBron with his feel for the game, playing off of Jokic in this way would be so much fun.
Yeah. I think that Scott, I will say, like, I understand your and other people's desire to put Scotty in this conversation. And I do think that there is a chance that is his level, right? I wouldn't rule it out that like he could be like the best third player in the NBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think and this comes from me, who Toronto fans think that like I hate Scotty Barnes. I think he is elevated above that level, in my opinion.
We're going to find out. Like, and I think they should find out. I don't know that I agree, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope that he crushes this year. They put all the floor spacing around him that they can find, and he is way better in that role than what I am projecting. And like I said, like that would be amazing. It was just, to me, it was a compliment that you can have the skill set to potentially be the number one guy, the focus of the offense, but also you could go be the number 3 guy and be the best number 3 guy in the NBA. Because there's guys that I flat out don't think that have the all around skill set to do that. So yeah.
So let's talk about Knicks Pacers now, real quick. Like I don't want to talk a ton about this series because I don't know what the fuck to make of this series at this point. Like the Knicks got super hurt, and then the Pacers go and like blow them out in game 4. Then Jalen Brunson goes off in Madison Square Garden, and we're going to talk about that extensively in some of the ways that I think Tom Thibodeau like really attacked with Brunson and made one small adjustment that I think like really changed a lot for them. But then they go and blow out Indiana, and like you could tell me either of these teams is going to win this series at this point. Like it feels a little bit to me similar to the Pacers Bucks series, where I know they won in 6 and they can't win in 6 in this one, but the Pacers are just like holding home court. And then like, they just have to take one, right? Now taking one in Madison Square Garden
game
with
7.
the crazed Knicks fans, game 7, all due respect to Milwaukee fans who were a little bit, I think, beaten down by the injuries of that team and everything like that. I'm not saying it's not a great fan base, but I think that going to game 7, Madison Square Garden against the Pacers, long-term rivals, like everything like that, it's a different ask for the Pacers to do that. Having said that, I just don't know what to make of this anymore. I think I would take the Knicks at this point. They're up 3-2. They just have to win one of these 2, whereas the Pacers have to win both. I think it probably goes 7 though, based off of, the fact that the Pacers have not lost yet at home.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Knicks are going to win the series. I would not be shocked if it goes 7 though. I just have a hard time betting against this Knicks team, especially at home. If it wasn't game 7 at home, I don't know where I would lean, but there just seems like there's something special. Like Brunson can conjure up what he needs. And I was thinking about this. Has anybody made themselves more money throughout these playoffs than Isaiah Hartenstein? Or do you think he's made him himself that much more money? Do you think he was
So,
already
like,
going to get what he's going to get?
I think that he has potential to have made himself more money. I think it's really just going to come down to like if he wants to leave New York. Like if he doesn't want to leave New York, he probably didn't make himself more money,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And they just like will have to give him the amount that they can give him, which is like 16 and a half for the first year and like 17 for the second year, and then you get his bird rights and kind of go from there. But it just really depends on what Isaiah wants. In a vacuum, though, I agree with you in saying that I think that Isaiah, somebody should give him like $90 million guaranteed. Like he's unbelievable. He was one of I said that I would have had him all defense this year, and he didn't play enough games with enough minutes, which is like a thing that the NBA has to figure out at the end of the year, but whatever. He's also just like got a more advanced offensive game than the guys like Jakob Poeltl and, you know, whoever else you want to say. And Jakob Poeltl got a 4-year, $80 million deal last year. And like, I get that the Raptors were, you know, had him over, they had him over a barrel or he had them over a barrel because they traded what ended up being the number 8 overall pick for him and everything. But guys, Isaiah Hartenstein also has the Knicks over a barrel in the circumstance, and like also has a bunch of suitors out there that would probably want him in that way.
As a 25-year-old who played 82 games 2 years ago, only 20 minutes a game. And then, yeah, to your point, 75 games, 25 minutes a night. He played almost 2,000 minutes and wasn't eligible. Like, what are we doing? Like, let's get that fixed. But he had 12 offensive rebounds. He had 17 total. The dude is so skilled. Listen, I'm not right very often. This was a guy I liked 2 years ago before I was podcasting about and doing all of this other stuff. Like, I would watch him play and like, man, I really like this guy. He's really good. He's really skilled. The floater is beautiful. He can pass. He defends, plays his butt off. I was like, cause like Brunson's going to get the max. He was going to get the max anyway, right? Like the next time I was just thinking like, who else has done so much in these playoffs where it's like they really took their next contract to another level? And there may be a different answer out there. I was just kind of thinking about that today as I was thinking through what we were going to talk about and anything that popped up. So.
Do you know what Isaiah Hartenstein is making on floaters this year?
On the year, not just the playoffs, just like in totality.
The whole year, including the playoffs.
The whole year, including the playoffs. I will say he is better than 50%.
He is making 62% of his floaters right now, which is in 90 games. That is a bonkers number. There are 2 players ahead of him. Nikola Vucevic by like a very small amount, by 0.1%. And then unsurprisingly, the person at number 1 is Nikola Jokic at 63% on floaters per Synergy. Shout out the good folks over at Synergy. Some of my favorite people. Shout out Matt Curley and Ben Turner over there. Do you want to talk about Jalen Brunson? Because Jalen Brunson is breaking my brain, and I adore watching him play.
Pretty good at basketball, Sam.
So a couple of things happened in this game that I think are worth bringing up. I mean, just Jalen Brunson being unbelievable, understanding how to take screens. This is an absurd shot, right? This is a completely ridiculous shot. The way that he kind of isolates himself onto Turner by continuing to string it out, make it so it's a farther recovery as you're trying to get over the top of that screen. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But the more interesting stuff to me, I think, comes in the next one, where I felt like throughout the course of the game, they made a concerted effort by putting Deuce McBride in the starting lineup, knowing that Tyrese Halliburton was going to start guarding Deuce McBride as the quote unquote weakest offensive player out there, to use Deuce in screening actions. And I can't remember if it was the end of the game or if it was in the fourth quarter or what, but Caitlin Cooper, you know, one of the all-time great human beings and people working in basketball, said that the Knicks involved Tyrese Halliburton in 22 ball screen actions. Do you know how many ball screen actions Halliburton himself took?
On offense?
On offense.
So he was in 22 defensive. Offense, let's say 18.
He was on 20. Yeah. So like they were beating Halliburton at the ball screen game.
I think I heard a stat that just how many ball screens Deuce McBride set in this game. Like the most he'd ever set in a game was like 8 or 9. I think it was either on Windhorse podcast or Low, whichever one of those. And then Deuce set like 20 in this game, which makes sense, right? It's going to be a similar number to what you just said with Halliburton. So
like this one here, you'll see they get into
double drag.
Yeah. Is this like a
pitch and then double
it's
drag?
like a pitch into a double drag, which is like, it's like a pseudo zoom almost, like a inverted, but like zoom is typically there'd be a Hartenstein kind of with the screen. So it's not quite that. It's like probably a double drag, I guess. And now the key thing that you're doing, the way that teams defend these like double screen actions for the most part, right? Not everybody, but like the preferred way of defending these, let's say, is you switch the first one,
get over the second,
and then you get, you play drop or,
or whatever,
the second guy gets over the second screen, right? Whatever you want to do. But you typically switch the first action. With Deuce setting that first screen for Halliburton, you can't do that. So Halliburton like shows, and it seems like TJ McConnell to me is kind of assuming that they're going to switch.
Yep.
Right. So like watch TJ's reaction here. TJ, it feels like just kind of peels off onto Deuce, thinking that Halliburton's just going to switch and try and get over the top here, and that Turner is going to play this way and play and drop. But he doesn't. He like shows and tries to recover. I mean, look at like Miles Turner's here confused. He's like, what's going on? He's got both arms out. Like, wait, what's happening here? Then you've got TJ like trying to recover into the play, but then you've let this like fucking Mack truck of Jalen Brunson get downhill. And it's like, okay, good luck trying to stop that at that point. So again, Deuce brings the ball up the court early, kind of double draggy thing in transition again. This time they try to put 2 on the ball. Nothing, just like nothing going there. Right. But it's because they're having TJ McConnell try and get over the top of 2 screens, which is hard. Getting over the top of 2 screens in the NBA against Jalen Brunson, who finished 5th in MVP this year. That's a borderline impossible ask, in my opinion, for TJ McConnell. TJ McConnell works his balls off, and he is a like fighting, scrappy defender.
Yep.
It's just hard. It's just really hard to ask him to do that, in my opinion. This one, again, another double drag, this time with Obi Toppin in the first action. Again, they have Aaron Naismith, I believe that is, try and fight over the top of both screens. He does a pretty good job getting back in front, but I mean, good luck, right? Like, it's just really hard to do. Really, really hard ask at that point. Again, like a delayed double drag into a rescreen, into another rescreen. And this just like, that's the stuff where it's just like Jalen Brunson is special, right? This isn't Aaron Naismith's fault. Aaron Naismith like does everything he can to stay in front here.
I didn't respect Jalen Brunson's stop enough before these playoffs. That's
sick.
That is silly.
It's just so sick. Yeah, this one they set like what almost looks like it's going to be like an under ghost with a Hartenstein screen coming up on the backside of it. So that makes this is actually like a really fun set, because this little rub action here underneath between Precious, kind of going to the dunker spot, and Hartenstein coming up and like acting like he's going to set a screen here, confuses Jackson and Siakam.
Yep.
Just momentarily in terms of how they're going to guard this. And you can see them trying to communicate and they just kind of vacate the lane.
And
Yeah.
Dante's gravity there also takes McConnell out of helping. Like Dante comes sprinting off that staggered, and the way he shot the ball and his gravity, McConnell just kind of swings an arm out there. And
Yep. Next one here is just Jalen Brunson in isolation. I mean, that hesitation, like inside out dribble, is one of the nastiest things I think I've seen like in the playoffs. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? He just sent like Andrew Nemhard like back to the shadow realm. Like, how do you even deal with that? This one's Ben Shepherd. I mean, Ben is a rookie. That's just a really tough ask for him to guard.
They've set
Jalen
quite a
Brunson.
few of these way out too, Sam. A lot of these screens are happening way out by half court.
Yep. And then again, you've got Nemhard on Brunson. That's just not a great matchup, in my opinion, for Indiana. They've tried it throughout the playoffs. I don't think it works super well. Again, now we're getting back end of the second quarter. Halliburton's back on the court, and we're trying to just isolate onto Halliburton, right? In any way that we can. Deuce sets one screen, he rescreens.
So
Brunson anticipates Halliburton showing, and he just splits.
It's a dead giveaway, though. He knows that Hallie isn't going to switch on to him based on how they've defended everything. So he knows he's going to try to show and recover like he does on the first one. Hallie shows, and then now Brunson's going, okay, well, now he's going to help up too high, and I'm just going to split it.
Yep. It's too easy. It's too predictable for Jalen Brunson. This one,
the way
again,
he
like
bounces, man.
It's the rhythm. Like, it's a really hard rhythm to guard, right? Again, another screen involving Halliburton. That one's like not totally Tyrese's fault, but it's just again showing what the strategy here. Another Halliburton screen, show and recover. They do a good job of kind of being able to get back in front with TJ McConnell. Halliburton's like trying to be there, trying to stunt in a few times, but it's just one-on-one. Brunson's a little bit too strong, a little bit too big for TJ McConnell, but they just don't have a great matchup for Brunson. They just don't have a great body to throw on him, especially when it's not Naismith. Naismith is the best one in my opinion, but it's hard. Like, Naismith's change of direction isn't quite good enough.
So
like,
yeah.
This one here is, I mean, that's just like rude. And that ends up being a goaltending bucket. But like, are you kidding me? Like, look at this. Look at that. The crossover into the behind the back D-cell, and Aaron Naismith is on the ground. I mean, that's just special player, man. Jalen Brunson is a special player. I think I would bet on Jalen Brunson is where I'm at in this series. Like, that's what it comes down to. If I'm betting on one guy in this series, and if I'm betting on, frankly, like I think Tibbs is out coached Rick Carlisle in this series too. We'll see how Rick adjusts back here in, game 6, but involving Halliburton, I think, in getting Deuce McBride in the starting lineup to deal with some of their injuries, I think it's just really sharp from Tibbs, and I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah. And listen, man, Brunson has been incredible. And every time I look up his stats, so he's averaging 30 in the playoffs in totality, 11 games, Sam. They played a lot of close games, 34, 7.5 on. He's up 45% from the field, 30% from three, almost 10 free throw attempts a game. And the dude is playing 41 minutes a night. Like, he is taking 27 shots a game, playing 41 minutes. It's incredible. Like, just the stamina to be able to do that is impressive enough to me, let alone the big shots and the big moments. He has been unreal. And there's no way I could bet against Jalen Brunson in game 7 at Madison Square Garden if it even gets there. And so and if the Pacers go in and take it, I will be wildly impressed with them being able to do that. So we'll see how they respond, how Halliburton responds, Siakam, Miles Turner, how they're able to respond and see if they can at least force a game 7.
So just a couple of quick thoughts here on Boston, Cleveland, and Dallas, Oklahoma City. They play tonight, right? Like, we don't want to, go crazy on this. I might do another stream tomorrow to talk about those games or something along those lines. Celtics-Cavs is tied in the second quarter, despite the fact that the Cavs have, I don't know how many warm bodies, like 9, something like that.
No Mitchell, no Allen, no Levert. There was somebody else
Yep.
that I'm missing. So yeah.
Yeah. So tough spot for them. Like they're getting a great game from Marcus Morris right now as we're talking. Like he's made 6 shots, has 2 threes. Like he's played really, really well. And it's just not been like a super active game from Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown at this point. We'll see if that changes as the game goes on, but look, this is setting up for a Celtics in 5. They're at home right now. I know it's tied and damn near halftime, but it is setting up for Celtics in 5. And we'll talk about maybe the Celtics getting eliminated or the Celtics moving on and the Cavs getting eliminated with our next episode on Friday. We'll probably record, would be my guess on your end.
Yep.
Next up is Dallas and Oklahoma City. And I don't, again, want to dive too deep into this because I don't know what the fuck's going to happen in this series. And we're going to feel totally different about it again tonight than what we did after the last game. I thought it was super impressive that Oklahoma City went in and stole that game against Dallas in Dallas. I thought Dallas like completely shit the bed in a lot of ways. I thought that, you just make your free throws and you win that game. Yep. Right. Like it's that simple. Like I think Oklahoma City went like 27 for 28 from the line or something. And then Dallas went like 12 for 23 from the line. Just wasn't good enough at the small details, like making free throws. But I'll ask you this. Let's look really stupid here. If you had to pick a team to win this series, which one are you taking right now?
Oh, I don't know. I'll still go. You know what? I'm going to go Thunder. I wonder if the Mavericks they hit all those. They've gotten incredible play from PJ Washington. I wonder if that continues. I wonder if we talked about the corner 3-point shooting. Do they continue to hit enough of those?
Well, it's funny. Like the last time we broke down the playoffs, we talked about how how Oklahoma City's defensive strategy is literally just like, we're going to take off the water for Luka. We're going to, really tag heavy on the rollers, and we're going to make Josh Green, Derek Jones Jr., PJ Washington beat us from 3. Yeah. And they did it in games 2 and 3, and they started to do it in game 4.
Exactly.
Before the water kind of turned off a little bit.
And that's what I'm nervous about is like, do those guys go make shots in Oklahoma City in potentially 2 different games? I just don't know. And at the end of the day, I've kind of said this Thunder team isn't ready. This, you have to take maybe this ends up being the heartbreak. Sam, they don't seem to fear the moment at all. Chet is not scared of the moment. J-Dub is not scared of the moment. SGA, I don't even think he made a shot in the lane the other day, and he still had 34 on, 27 shots, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, no turnovers. Like I don't know, man. Like I love Luka. I like that Mavs team. I'm kind of tired of myself counting this Thunder team out a little bit, though.
I think I am too, as somebody that really liked Dallas coming into the playoffs. I just don't know. I don't know if they can expect to keep getting that kind of performance from their role players. They need Luka and they need Kyrie. Like, I think Kyrie deserves a lot of credit for like settling into this like defensive role that he's played.
Okay. So I feel like Kyrie's been good defensively and passing the ball. Would you agree? Am I
totally
seeing
agree.
Things wrong? He just hasn't maybe scored it at as high a level as what we would want. Is that fair?
Totally agree with you.
Okay.
But the problem is that they acquired him to be the secondary scorer and to do like all of this other stuff too, because Kyrie's going to be in the Hall of Fame and everything like that. But like, they really need him to be the secondary scorer on this team. So that's kind of where that stands to me. Okay. I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. They have home court advantage. We'll see where it goes, but I think I would take Oklahoma City. And like, I guess that people will want us to talk about like the Josh Giddey starting thing. Like, yes, I don't think Josh Giddey should be starting at this point. I would start probably Cason Wallace, to be honest. I really like the way that he's defended multiple of Dallas's guys, including Kyrie specifically. So I would probably go Cason, but I'm open, to Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins, whatever they want to do. I also will note, without, getting into like a defensive Josh Giddey here, a big thing that people have complained about is that Oklahoma City has struggled to rebound in this series as well. And if you take Giddey off of the court, it becomes harder to rebound. If Oklahoma City has struggled to move the ball at times in this series. You take Giddey off the court, your unselfish ball mover out there does leave. Now, do I think that makes up for the way that Dallas is playing him as a non-scorer and the way that he is, not able to really defend anybody on Dallas? I don't, and I would not start him. But I will say that I think those are probably the reasons why Mark Daigneault has been hesitant to move him out of the starting lineup at this point.
And so to your point, Giddey was the second leading rebounder on the Thunder during the regular season. Chet was about at 8, Giddey's at 6.5. Then it was actually SGA. Jalen Williams actually down at 4. But in the playoffs, Shea is up at almost 8 and Jalen Williams is up at 6.5. So I think if you were going to take Giddey off the floor, that's what's going to have to happen is you're actually going to have to ask your 3 best players who are already expending a lot of energy to really, really rebound the ball. Probably Lou Dort as well. Those guys are going to have to pick up the slack because you're right. In the regular season, in less minutes than all those guys as well. Giddey only played 25 minutes a night in the regular season. He was by far easily their second leading rebounder. And so that is something for a team that's already struggles on that end. But we talked about this going all the way. I mean, throughout the whole regular season, Sam, as we fell in love with this Thunder team and how good they were and everything they did, we kept saying, what is Josh Giddey going to be in the playoffs? What is Lou Dort going to be in the playoffs? I feel like Dort has been pretty good for the most part. He's averaging, 10.5, shooting 43% from 3 on 6 attempts a game, maybe a little better. That I may not have given him enough credit there. He's been really good, and we know how good he is defensively. So Dort has kind of answered the bell. Giddey, we knew they may get to this situation. Where I was wrong, I thought Gordon Hayward was going to be the answer for this.
Oh, yeah. No, he's unplayable.
Yeah.
Was totally wrong about that.
Yeah, he was not the answer for this.
We thought that was a good addition. We were very wrong.
Very wrong.
That was a bad take by us. That was a very bad take.
Hey, we keep our own receipts at Game Theory, so we're all about it.
Holy shit, was Gordon Hayward being a good addition for them at the deadline? A bad take by us. Okay. Let's talk NBA Draft Combine now. NBA Draft Combine has now come and gone in terms of the public facing aspects of it.
Yep.
I have watched like part of the first game today.
Well, you only get to see parts, Sam. You only get to see parts of the game anyway. That's all you get to see.
Do this now.
Can we get it over with? We're an hour and 15 minutes in, so my emotions about it aren't as strong as they were 2 hours ago. Listen, if ESPN doesn't want to do better coverage than this, and I'm blaming ESPN in general, no individual,
not the people on camera. It's a production choice.
It's a production choice. It was very much a strategic choice of how they did things. Then give it to somebody else. I am there to watch these kids play basketball, and there are legit NBA draft prospects on the court, and I am staring at people in the broadcast, people in the stands. I love Anthony Edwards, Sam. I don't need an Anthony Edwards, why you shouldn't compare me to LeBron James interview, as much as that's interesting to me, while the game is going on. It drove me absolutely insane. I don't tweet about these things ever. I'm not that guy. And I tweeted about him. I wrote tweets and deleted them. I had to say, don't hit send. Just let me watch the game. All I wanted. Here's the thing. You want to interview Reed Shepherd or Woj or whoever, go about your business, split screen it so I can watch the game. I honestly, Sam, thought it was disrespectful to the guys playing that they continued to broadcast and choose the pass and the avenues they did. I'm terrified that's what happens in the second round of the draft. Listen, let me come on and talk about him. I had a page and a half of notes on almost every single guy that was playing in those games. I will do it for free, Sam. I will do it for free. But I think it should have been better. I was upset for the kids, to be quite honest. Sorry.
So here's my thing. Yes, I would like to see the games. Yes, I would love to see the games more. Not a lot of people are as engaged in the NBA draft as you and I are.
I know.
And ESPN, who has the draft, uses this as an opportunity to introduce a lot of these players, right? And I think that is in some respect valuable. Now, like, I agree with you. I would just like to see split screen stuff. Like, just make it so we can see the games at all times. There's no reason not to have like kinetic action on the court on the screen somewhere, as opposed to, you know, something else. Or offer if you're not going to do it on TV, offer an over the top option on, you know, watch ESPN on the app or whatever, where you just have like the game, right?
Yeah. I don't need commentary. I just want to watch the game. Sam, they refused to go to break because they were interviewing Lawrence Frank. And then after the interview was over, when the game was back on, then they went to commercial break while the game was being played. I want to watch the game. You can't see parts of the game at all, Sam. Sorry.
And here's the other piece of it too. In terms of it being disrespectful to the players, I don't know that it is. I'm typically like 100% on your side on that stuff. This isn't like a game where they're trying to have it televised. Like, they're there in front of scouts trying to perform.
No, that's
right.
Fair. Sure.
Like, it's different than, you know, the national title game, if they would go away, or like even some random fucking Big Ten game in West Lafayette, right? Where you're up in the stands, like doing shit and like interviewing whoever. I would prefer to see the game. The thing I would ask ESPN next year is just offer an over the top, like, streaming thing where it's just like an ISO on the game.
Agreed.
I think that would be really like an easy adjustment for everybody.
Yes. Here's my problem is I can't get a version of that game without that broadcast. You know what I mean? Like, I can't go download something on Synergy where it cuts. I legitimately have guys I was trying to watch film and do stuff for that I can't get parts of the game for. I missed actual game action. And let's say these kids wanted to work, like break the film down or something. There is legit minutes of the game that is not available to them. Maybe they are to them, but to learn from. And so that's ultimately, that's truly what I'm frustrated by. Give me a different version of it, like somewhere else where I can just watch it. I don't need the broadcast.
Hey, and if you're enjoying this video, like and subscribe over on YouTube, where I am just like sitting back and like laughing as Bryce, you know, loses his mind on this thing. Let's talk about the players, right?
Okay. Yep.
Did you think anybody like really truly moved the needle with their performances this week, with measurements, with athletic testing, anything like that?
No. I mean, there was numbers that stood out, right? Like Reed's vertical jump was impressive. I thought KJ Simpson looked good. I think it was the first scrimmage. I thought I just had a name. Who was I looking at? Oh, your guy. I thought Shed looked really good in the scrimmage. I thought he played really well. Here's the thing. Like, this is where people are going to tell me to just shut up. The other thing is, like, the scrimmages, I like to just see the way guys move and how they play and how they interact and all of those things. The measurement stuff isn't as big to me. Like, I don't get as crazy about even the shooting things. You sent out a tweet and I text you. I said, Sam, I agree with this 100%. And this is Bryce Simon being arrogant portion of the podcast. Sam, if you told me, hey, Bryce, I need you to go make so many threes out of 50 within the next month, I could get you a video where I do that. And I was a low-level Division I player who wasn't any good. And so, like, these standstill shooting numbers we have data on most of these guys of game-like shots. So
yeah, like I'm telling you, like I've been in the gym with Mark Titus where like he hasn't picked up a ball in
exactly,
a month or whatever, and he'll go and just like bang like 18 to 25 from
100%. Yeah,
like he can, like, if you have that shooting skill in an open gym, it's just kind of the reality. And now like these guys are moving, they're doing a star drill, they're in front of scouts, there's pressure, like how you react to the pressure is an interesting piece of it. But I don't care. Like you can't over index on 25 shots that these kids take, or 50 shots, whatever it is, if you're doing the spot up plus the star drill. It's just such a bad idea when we have games of them shooting and we've been to practices. Like people were like, oh my God, like Bronny James didn't take that many threes this year. He, the way he performed in the star drill says something. Guys, like any scout that was at Hoop Summit last year saw him shoot a billion shots in practice.
Yeah.
Like, and saw him shoot like a bunch of stuff. Like the sample that we have of these guys is like really like a lot greater than what it is, in my opinion.
Well, like for example, listen, I love Bub. We've talked about Bub a lot, and I think he's awesome. But like the first video I saw of him, he was catching, he's super relaxed, like took forever to get his shot up. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, I think it could be a real error to just look at the numbers on a sheet of paper and make any sort of conclusions or jump guys way up or down. Now, did I move guys on my board around a little bit from the scrimmages? Yes. And I'm trying not to overreact, but I'm like, man, that looked a certain way. And that kind of, like, there was little things here and there. I thought there was guys that looked really poor in the scrimmages that I'm like, man, that's 2 scrimmages. You get a chance. That didn't look great. But I just don't think, some of the verticals, did you see it? Like, I'm interested. I want to go watch Reed. Like, how often do you think we saw that vertical show up with Reed? To me, my first thought was when he blocks jump shots defensively, I'm like, oh, this makes more sense now why he was able to contest some of those the way he did.
So, yeah. So let's kind of do this in sections, right?
Okay, sure.
So the way that I kind of want to break this up is I was going to do measurements first, but we'll do athletic testing first because you brought up, and I think that's like totally fine to do. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen here and bring up the testing while we're talking about it, so people can see what the numbers were. If you're watching on YouTube, a great reason to watch on YouTube. You'll be able to see all of these numbers as opposed to some of them. And that's the wrong screen. What screen am I looking for here? I am looking to share screen. We're looking for, that's what we're looking for, Bryce. Okay. So let's talk about Reed first. So Reed Shepherd has the 42-inch vertical leap. The other piece of it with Reed that is worth noting is that if you look at Reed's standing reach, Reed had a 7'9" standing reach. If you look at the other players around him that are, let's say, between 6'2.5" and 6'1", right? Some of them have like pretty similar wingspan measurements. Like for instance, like Jared McCain has like a similar wingspan measurement. It's 6'3.5", right? To Reed's 6'3", 2'5". Jared McCain ended up with an 8'2" standing reach. Reed Shepherd ended up with a 7'9.5" standing reach. And everybody has different body mechanics or like body shapes and like longer necks and, shoulders, width and everything like that, right? Tyler Kolek was shorter than Reed, had a shorter wingspan, ended up with a 7'11" standing reach. I don't know if Reed gained the vertical leap system. What I will say is that I think Reed having real explosiveness pops on tape. When he's going to contest shots, there's a reason that he blocked almost 1 shot per game this year.
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, you have to take the vertical leap number in conjunction with the standing reach number.
Yeah.
And look at it as a holistic thing. And in my opinion, Reed's vertical jump was probably a little bit more equivalent to like a normal 6'2" player having like a 38-inch vertical leap, as opposed to a 42-inch vertical leap, right? And that's great. Like, that's awesome athletic testing. And Reed is definitely a way better athlete than what people think. And I think we've talked about that the entire year, that like we like Reed athletically a little bit more than what the consensus is. Reed also had like a fantastic lane agility time where he was 10.96. Like, that's, you know, well above average. I don't know what he did in the shuttle run. 303 looks okay to me. Yeah, again, like probably above average, but not like amazing. But the max vert is the one where it really stood out. And I will just note that I think that, you know, take it with a small grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, just knowing the number that they touched, you know, maybe would be even better than max vertical leap, whatever. And just for anybody who like isn't super into the combine, they do a standing vertical leap, which is no jump. They're just 2 feet, jump as high as you can. Max vertical leap, you're allowed to essentially do whatever you want. You can run in, off 1, off 2, whatever you want to do. So there is a difference between those two. I thought Keyshawn Johnson's number, that did not surprise me at all. I think he's a big time athlete. I really like Keyshawn. I know we haven't got into our second round conversations, that type of stuff. He's a guy that I would love to talk about when we do there. Obviously, Bronny tested well, like with all due credit. I assume at some point we're going to talk about Bronny. You know, give him his due credit here. He tested very well, which him being a great athlete is important for his NBA draft stock. You know who else I thought looked explosive, and the number says it. I thought Oso had some lobs and finishes in the scrimmages where he looked really explosive, and the number there kind of backs that up as well.
Yeah, he's got real pop. He has real vertical pop. The guy I want to talk about is Devin Carter, though.
Yeah, sure.
People know that like I've been exceptionally high on Devin Carter throughout this process. I have him as a lottery grade. The reason for that, A, is like awesome competitor, great defender, processing ability, but B, I think he might be the best athlete in this class. And we've talked about that throughout the season, that we think Devin Carter is like this incredible athlete. Set the record for 3/4 sprint time, I believe. Lane agility time was 3rd behind KJ Simpson and Dalton Connect. 42-inch vertical leap. Like, just an absolute dude in terms of how like athletic he is. He is explosive and he processes the game faster than you. I think he is an awesome, awesome player.
Well, the standing vertical stands out to me. Can you filter that one? I can see that he's tied with a few guys, but like that's big time explosion when you're not getting any momentum into it. So for anybody not watching on YouTube, it's 35 tied with Adem Bona and Oso Ighodaro. So that's a really, really impressive number. Another guy who's, I guess the vertical leap stuff isn't here, but some of the other numbers, it looked like Connect performed really well with the lane agility, shuttle run, and that stuff. We talked about him being a big time athlete all year as well. And yeah, he's still up there in the overall max vertical leap. So Dalton Connect is a real athlete.
Yeah, Dalton's a real athlete. Modest Buzelis, you know, measuring in, you know, 6'8", 7'5" or so without shoes, and then 38-inch vertical leap. I think that was a great number. Tyler Smith, 38-inch vert at his size, great number.
Sure.
You know, Oso, you brought up Adem Bona, 40-inch vertical leap at his size, great number. PJ Hall probably surprised some people athletically, I think. You know, not super agile or anything. We knew that wouldn't necessarily show up, but you know, near 40-inch vertical leap, I think probably surprised some people. You know, Jamal Shed, I kind of thought would even test like better than what he did. The quickness was obviously there, like awesome lane agility stuff, but only a 38-inch vert. Like I expected him to be up over 40. Yeah, I mean, look, like Khalil Ware jumping 36 with his measurements is pretty absurd as well. There's just a lot of dudes here that I think tested like quite well athletically. In terms of guys that like didn't test super well, Peyton Sanford, 28-inch vert, not ideal. We knew that wasn't going to go super well. Coleman Hawkins, only 29.5. Like that's a weird number for what his just like overall profile is as a prospect. I kind of expected a little bit better than that.
Yep.
You know, Cam Spencer, we knew Cam Spencer wasn't going to test well. Did actually even test like a little bit better in the agility stuff than what I expected, but nonetheless.
Furphy
Baylor
being down
Shireman
at the bottom is interesting.
Furphy was a little bit lower than I expected. Shireman being a little bit lower than I expected. Other than that, like a lot of these, like Justin Edwards being a little bit lower than what people thought in vertical leap and some of the agility testing, that feels a little bit concerning. But you don't want to get like over the top with a lot of these numbers, I don't think, just because they are what they are.
There is also real like practicality to athleticism as well. I tell people all the time, Sam, when I was in high school, if you put me on a track, I would look like a fool. I would not have stood out in any sort of way. You put me on a basketball floor and I look like the best athlete in my area because like I just moved like a basketball player. I learned to move that way. I couldn't jump out of the gym by any means, but I could jump in traffic. I could take contact and still elevate. I could take body in the air and still elevate. I've seen dudes that jumped way higher than me that couldn't dunk as well in games because the traffic disrupted them or they had to have their steps perfectly and those type of things. So you have to take some of this with a grain of salt and a little bit like it's just another piece of the pie, right? Like, does it track with what you saw on film? If it doesn't, maybe I need to go back and watch some film and maybe this guy wasn't as athletic as I thought, or maybe the athleticism was a bigger concern than what I thought. Let me go back and watch the film and see if it shows up more now that I'm really watching it.
I think that's a good call. Let's go to the measurements portion now, maybe, and kind of dive into any numbers that kind of caught our eye there. So
the big one was Steph Castle's incorrect height to start the day up, right?
And like that, so I was asleep when all of that was happening.
Okay.
So I didn't see any of that, which was good.
Yeah.
They just didn't put Devin Carter's measurements in clearly for him early on. Yes. Anybody that's seen Steph Castle in person, like, knows immediately that's just like an insane.
I was so confused because like I've talked to people who have been very close to Castle and never did somebody be like, oh, he's actually only 6'2", 6'3". Like that was never something that was said. So I was like, what is going on?
So just like the standout numbers here, Zach Edey at 7'4" almost without shoes is just completely bonkers. 7'11" wingspan almost. Just an enormous human being. Donovan Clingan coming in at almost 7'2" without shoes. 9'7" standing reach for both of those guys. 7'7" wingspan. Everything we expected. We should bring up Alex Sarr here. Comes in almost as a legit 7-footer without shoes. 6'11", 7'5", 9'2" standing reach. 224 pounds was heavier than what I anticipated for Sarr. He's clearly done really good work putting on weight.
Real quick,
7'4", looks like, that's exactly what we would have hoped.
The standing reach thing that you're talking about plays out right here with Edey and Clingan. Edey's almost 7'4" with this almost 7'11". Clingan's almost 7'2" with the 7'7", and they have the same standing reach according to this. So like, to your point, like some of these numbers are just funny based on, did a guy not reach quite as much? Did a guy really extend? Is it necks, shoulders? All of that stuff plays into it. So just some context with what you spoke on earlier.
Khalil Ware's numbers really popped for some people. Damn near 7 foot tall without shoes, 9'4.5" standing reach, 7'4.5" wingspan. I would have liked to have seen Khalil Ware like play, to be honest. There was never a chance that was going to happen. But, a guy that I wish I liked a little bit more because I like the tools. I just think that there were a lot of moments, even at Indiana this year, where he was a little bit more disengaged than what I would have liked to see. And that was like, he did better. Like he did great work coming in from Oregon, where like the book on him, like Dana Altman would go into press conferences and be like, he's not playing hard. Like we need him to play harder. We need him to do this, that, and the other thing. And he's not. I think that I would have, there were some, he did better at Indiana with that stuff. So on a positive trajectory there, but I wish that there was a little bit more that he was doing on a possession by possession basis in terms of like engagement. Numbers that stood out like beyond just like the tall guys. So Kyle Filipowski coming in, almost 7 foot in shoes, 6'10", 7'5" without shoes, 8'11" standing reach because he has the negative wingspan. That is a number that definitely stood out, and it's not like wildly surprising watching him. that's the case. I like Filipowski's defense in space a little bit more than other people's do, which is probably why I'm like a little bit more inclined to be okay with it. But 8'11" standing reach for a guy who's going to play a decent amount of center is like a little bit of a low number that teams will want to take a look at. Oso Iguodaro at 8'5" standing reach for a big.
Yeah.
Again, guy that had a 40-inch vertical leap or whatever it was. Great standing vert that led the combine. Take those numbers in conjunction with one another, but they're probably more in the ballpark of like Filipowski's numbers now, as opposed to, you know, what you hope to see from a big who's going to have to like be a weak side rim protector, move his feet on the perimeter, kind of be a little bit more athletic. Like he's going to get by on like quick twitch and athleticism and everything.
And a guy we've talked about, the defensive rebounding being a major concern whenever we're talking about him and these other bigs at the end of the first round. And why do we draft this guy over that guy? I think we both love his skill in terms of his passing. I think he has a really nice floater, can't shoot, but he'll operate DHOs and all that stuff. But he's got to rebound the basketball on the defensive end.
Absolutely right. N'Faly Dante coming in, you know, 6'10" without shoes, 9'3" standing reach, 7'6" wingspan. We knew that he was going to be enormous, but like that wingspan is pretty ridiculous. Chomchi, we got measurements for. I had those since Hoop Summit. People probably aren't like totally aware of that. Ulrich Chomchi is a guy that, you know, has gotten some buzz as a potential draft pick coming out of the NBA Academy. I don't think he's like anywhere remotely close to being a draft pick right now. Like I think he should be going to college somewhere in terms of his game. 7'4" wingspan though, 9'1" standing reach. Yves Missy, you know, damn near 7 foot in shoes, 7'2" wingspan, 9'1.5" standing reach. Good enough for him. Adem Bona, 9 foot standing reach, 7'4" wingspan almost. Great numbers there. PJ Hall came in, you know, 7'1.5" wingspan. I don't know if everybody knew that number, but did come in 8'7.5" standing reach, which again, big time vertical leap, small standing reach. Take those numbers in conjunction.
Tristan
with one
Da Silva almost being 6'10" in shoes is a little bit taller than I thought, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like he'll be listed at 6'8" in the NBA, which is big for him. You know, 8'8.5" standing reach is a good number. You know, we've had Isaac Joneses since Portsmouth. We've had Enrique Freeman since Portsmouth, but him coming in 9 foot standing reach, really good number. Keyshawn George for a wing, 8'9" standing reach at 6'7", big number. Alex Caravan, 8'10" standing reach. I feel like I've mentioned a few times on the podcast the Caravan has a 7 foot wingspan or something near that. But like I got people like, wait, like Alex Caravan's arms are long. I'm like, yeah, that's been the reality like all year. He ends up at 6'11" wingspan, you know, really, really good number for him.
Cody Williams, 7'1".
Cody Williams, 7'1" wingspan. Ryan Dunn, 7'1.5" wingspan. Jonathan Mogbo, you know, 9'1.5" standing reach, 7'2" wingspan. For a guy that's like on that precipice of 4 or 5,
yep,
that's a big number for him.
Yep.
Let's get to kind of some of the smaller guys, because I know that was a talking point. Jamal Shed, not super long. We knew that coming in. Robert Dillingham. Rob Dillingham, 7'11" standing reach, 6'1" with a 6'3" wingspan. The big number the teams will be worried about there is 164.
Yeah.
He's 164 pounds at the combine. I think that was 15 pounds lighter than anybody else that was there. That is definitely a number that teams will have some worries about. Because I think that Rob was listed at Kentucky at like 175 or so, even like 170, 175. 176 at Kentucky was the weight. That was just like never reality. It felt like. Reed Shepherd, we talked about a little bit, 6'1", 7'5" without shoes, 6'3", 2'5" wingspan, still quite skinny, 181 pounds. Jared McCain, 6'2" with a 6'3.5" wingspan. Devin Carter had the +6 wingspan. You know, I'm trying to think. Boogie Ellis +6 wingspan. Trey Alexander, we knew super length,
Yeah,
+7 wingspan, but Trey Alexander did not play super well in the games at the combine.
he did not. Salas with a +6 and what is that? +6.25. Okay.
+6 wingspan, which we kind of felt like was possible. Jacoby Walter was a guy that I had some questions on lengthwise. He ends up at 6'10", damn near +6 wingspan. Dylan Jones +6 wingspan. Jackson Robinson, very long, damn near a +6 wingspan as well. 8'7" standing reach for basically like a shooting guard. That's a good number. Jameer Watkins +6 wingspan, definitely feels long, plays long. And then Harrison Ingram, +7 wingspan for him. So really, really high end number that I think people were excited to see. Anything else really stand out to you in terms of like heights, weights, measurements, anything?
No, the weight on Dillingham is interesting. Like I looked up Bones Highland, Bones, obviously a reason that's his nickname, 169 whenever he tested at the combine. So that's a low number there for Rob Dillingham.
Yeah, that's a real concern. Okay, let's go to games. Again, this comes from me having watched half of the third game and none of the fourth game. So I've not seen Bronny's second game at this point. What did you see? Did you see anybody that you felt like really stood out in the first day of the combine, let's say?
No, like I said, Shed was a guy that stood out to me. I thought Oso popped a little bit. I found myself gravitating towards AJ Johnson. I maybe that's just what I always do. I'm not saying he was great. I think Baylor Shireman probably did well for himself. I thought I was already pretty high on Keyshawn Johnson. I thought he looked good. Trying to think who else is like Reeves is a guy that you've really talked about quite a bit. Antonio Reeves, that maybe I wasn't high enough on. He scored the basketball a little bit. Those were probably the positives.
The guys that really stood out for me that I'll bring up were, especially first day, I thought Baylor Shireman and Jamal Shed were the two best players on the court in terms of like impacting the game across multiple places, like on the court. Shireman, like, passing, ability to drive the ball. We know that he can shoot. I thought he performed well. Jamal Shed was just like everywhere. It felt like, again, to me, great leader, did a great job. I think really kind of organizing his team, passed the ball well in that first game, did a really good job. I'm glad you brought up AJ Johnson. I thought AJ Johnson was quite good. He really impressed me throughout the course of the proceedings. Like I thought he was, his passing really stood out. I thought in game one. I know that like a big thing for AJ Johnson's group has been that they think he can play some point guard, potentially play some lead guard, like in the way that Anthony Simons did. Look, he had 4 assists in the first game, and I think he had 6 in the second game. And I thought he did a really, really good job of showcasing that there is some real projectable vision there, potentially down the road. I have not watched the second game, though. I'm just looking at the box score and seeing that AJ Johnson had 6 assists and 0 turnovers there. So I would like to, maybe see a little bit more before I dive too deep into that. But undeniably, like, a guy that is as young as anybody in this class, especially like physically when you see him up close.
Yeah.
I think AJ Johnson honestly probably helped himself and like made it so I would anticipate he will go in the top 40 at this point.
Yeah, that's where I have him at this point. I've been a little bit stubborn on it. There was a long time where I didn't even think he would be in this class at all. We've talked about it from like when you turn on the NBL film, I was like, Sam, this kid like moves a little bit different than anybody else, but there's some stuff that needs to get cleaned up. Hadn't played a whole lot of minutes. I was really interested in this context with other very talented players. How would he look? Would he play within himself, make good decisions? I came away very impressed with AJ Johnson.
Other guys on the first day that I thought like really, really stood out. I'm trying to think like if anybody like truly popped. I thought like KJ Simpson's a guy that you brought up.
Yeah.
He played pretty solidly. John Mogbo, I thought played well, to be honest. Like he did exactly the role that you would like to see, basically. Like, I thought he was the exact thing that you were hoping his role would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moved the ball well, passed it well, played pretty big, I thought. Who else here? I'm trying to think of the second game as well. Enrique Freeman's the other guy we should bring up.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. That was
I don't think anybody's helped himself as much as Enrique Freeman through the pre-draft process so far.
Yeah.
Earned his call up to the combine, played at Portsmouth, played really well, earned his way into the G League Elite camp. I thought, Enrique Freeman basically locked up a two-way, at least this week. And if you told me he gets drafted, like, I would completely buy that. And I think it's like very, very plausible that he gets picked. I might end up with him in the top 60. And he's a guy that I thought was like a borderline top 100 guy kind of entering the process.
Yeah, listen, I pride myself on my Google sheet and all of the names I have and all of the scouts. Freeman was a guy that wasn't heavy on my radar until this process. So in that way, he's a guy that now I need to go back and really watch the film. It's a guy that averaged almost 13 rebounds a game, over 3.5 offensive rebounds a game, shot a really good percentage from the field. Looks like he started to shoot the three a little bit this season. So he's a guy that definitely I'm like, okay, he made it through this process. The numbers look good, flashed at the combine. Now he's like, I got to go figure out who this kid really is. And so it'll kind of be the inverse of how I usually scout a player, but I'm excited to go in and look at it.
I thought Jurisic looked interesting today.
Sure.
In the parts of the scrimmage that I watched. Again, I haven't seen that entire thing yet, but goes for 16 points, looked really intriguing as a scorer, worth bringing up there. And then I'm trying to think if anybody else like really popped in that scrimmage. I'll mention AJ Johnson. I think not AJ Johnson, AJ Mitchell in the first scrimmage. I thought passed the ball really well, which is something that scouts really wanted to see from him actually. And then the final scrimmage, which again, I've not watched a second of. I just want to be like very upfront and clear about that. It is worth noting that Bronny James goes for 13 points. He shoots 4 for 10 from the field, has 2 turnovers versus 2 assists. Like, it's not some monster game or anything, but this can kind of transition us into the Bronny discussion point. There has been a lot of Bronny attention at the combine. And I think it's like a little bit to the detriment of the kid to some extent. Bronny is being pushed to the NBA early. Like, we can just say that, right? He averaged how many guys who are, let's see what Bronny measured at. Bronny measured at 6'1.5" with an 8'2" standing reach, 6'7" wingspan, a good physical 210-pound frame, 40.5-inch vertical leap. How many guys though that are 6'1" and averaged under 5 points per game get pushed to the NBA and like are expected to be draft picks? Like, none. Zero. The answer is zero.
Yeah.
So I am personally of the belief that it's a disservice to the kid to like really be pushing this in a real way. I think we should be excited about the fact that he, we should cheer his successes, like him shooting well at the star drill and apparently, playing okay in the second combine game. Like, we should be happy for his, coming in and, playing fine and looking not out of place, maybe is the way to put it. Because for a guy that averaged 5 points at 6'1", there is a chance that guy looks out of place. Right.
Yeah.
I am glad that he performed reasonably. I do not think that this moved the needle in any way, shape, or form for him as a draft prospect. I just think that at the end of the day, teams are going to look at the sample that they have for him on tape. They're going to look at the sample that they have seen previously, and they're going to base it off of that. And that's, the way that scouting works, right? You go off of the bigger samples and you go from there. Well,
and my thing here, if Bronny doesn't want to be a college basketball player, that's fine. Like, if he is done with college, he wants to go be a pro, like we've seen countless other kids do, then great. And if he thinks the NBA G League is the place to develop him, then go ahead and go. I don't agree with that, but maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe that is the best place for him to develop. What I want to ask you is, I felt like the broadcast was purposely, I shouldn't say, the broadcast was pushing a narrative of Bronny doesn't need to be a point guard. He needs to be an off-ball player. Gavoni's whatever like profile database had him comp to Gary Harris, and the broadcast, like, what are your thoughts on him being an off the ball, like defensive stopper, floor spacer?
Well,
because he struggled with the ball in his hands and making decisions. He had some really bad turnovers in these scrimmages.
I think it's what he has to be. Like, he has to be a off-ball player, because do you know how fucking good point guards are at dribbling the basketball, Bryce? Like, do you know how good they are at creating shots? There is no higher standard in the NBA than creative sub 6 foot or, sub 6'3" ball handler, right? Because think about it. There are just more of those guys on planet Earth than there are 6'7" athletes and 6'9" athletes and 7 foot tall human beings, right? So the standard to be a great point guard and great playmaker with the ball, it's higher than any other position. Because guys, like, great players play with the ball, especially at the NBA. Like, great players at the high school level always have the ball in their hands. Bryce, how much did you have the ball in your hands in high school?
All the time.
Yeah. What did you do in college?
Stood in the corner and shot threes.
Right. Like, there are a million people like you who came from Kansas or Nebraska or California or New Jersey or wherever, right? Who had the ball in their hands all the time and had to adjust, right? Now think about how good you have to be to have the ball in your hands in college, and then adjust that to how good you have to be to have the ball in your hands in the NBA.
Yeah.
I don't think Bronny can be an on-ball player in the NBA. I just don't. I think that he is not a good enough ball handler. I don't think he's creative enough with the ball. I don't think he has like the physical attributes to have the ball. Like, he's explosive as a leaper, but he's like quite boxy, I think, as an athlete, and, kind of square. And like, I don't think he shifts his hips like super well and is like super shifty with the ball. So to me, I think he is this off ball Avery Bradley, Gary Harris, if you want to do that, whatever. Here's the problem with the Gary Harris comp. And this is just me, like, wanting to give Gary Harris flowers as opposed to anything, right? Gary Harris, in his first year at Michigan State, was a 5-star recruit, top 20 recruit in his class, averaged 13 points per game, shot 46, 41, 76. His second year, because he played 2 years, he averaged 17 points per game in his second year. Gary Harris was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year. He made all Big Ten his second year. He was all Big Ten defense his second year. Like, he was a like national ballot for like the Wooden Award, which is like the top 15 players in the country, basically. The level to which Gary Harris was better and is better than Bronny James coming into the NBA, when they're both like right around like 19 years old, is ludicrous. Like, Gary Harris was a real dude at Michigan State, like a serious basketball player.
I think the question then comes down to, because we've said this multiple times, that we both think that Bronny James is a real NBA draft prospect and potential NBA player, just not in this class, is, does Bronny improve the things he needs to improve at, which I think is shot making, shooting is the very first thing. Does he do that better on an NBA team in the G League, or with going to another year of college and playing in that role and getting those minutes and those type of things? I think that's what this question comes down to then.
So like, here's the other thing too, though. Like, I just went on this like longer tangent of Bronny, like, not, being able to play point guard. He does still need to improve his ball skills, like, in a real way, Because again, like if the idea here is Gary Harris, Avery Bradley, those guys were way ahead of him as like ball handlers and ability like to create shots. So like Avery Bradley, for instance, freshman, top 5 recruit in the country, 12 points per game, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, shot 43, 38, and then like very rarely got to the line, but shot 55% from the line. Right. But like way ahead of where Bronny is, shooting 36, 26 this year or whatever, and averaging 5 points. I just think that, and Avery Bradley, all freshmen in the Big 12. I think it would be better for him to go to college and develop against players that are his own age that will allow him to continue to improve his ball skills at a like marginal rate that he may need right now. Doesn't mean we're not going to root for him. Like I hope that he's great. The other piece of it is like, and this is where like I'll talk a little bit about the broadcast. Like I think Woj said that he's going to pack out G League arenas and like have all this merchandising stuff. I mean, like even if he goes to like Sioux Falls or something, right? Or, Fort Wayne, wherever, probably going to end up in LA, but like, let's take a second here. He is not going to pack out those arenas.
Yeah.
Like nobody packs out G League arenas. That's just the reality of it. Why is that the case? The G League is like a developmental league where nobody really cares about the wins and losses.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So like, I really like Chase Buford, former coach of the Sydney Kings. Chase like kind of responded to one of my tweets and said, yeah, but like, think about the way that like LaMelo, packed out arenas in Wollongong for Illawarra. Like that was one of the lowest attendance teams. And the thing is that LaMelo was just way ahead of Bronny right now as a player. So like it was a show when LaMelo played, but B, like NBL games, that's the highest standard of basketball that you can get in Australia. Like that is a really good competitive basketball game. So you're not going to the highest standard of basketball if you go to see Bronny play. I can see a world where like if he's in like Stockton or wherever, like one of these towns, small cities, let's not call Stockton a town. I don't want Nate Diaz to come after me. But like if you go to like one of these like smaller cities, I can see a world where Bronny like sells more tickets early on. But like it's a drop in the bucket of what the like impact is of a draft pick.
I think what you just said is really important as well. Is that's not his style of play. Like he's not a flashy, exciting, play with the ball in his hands, cross dudes over. Like there's nothing wrong with this. It's just
they might go like once or twice, but like they're not gonna like
You're not selling out to watch Bronny dog dudes up and down the floor defensively, which like I hope he does, but that's not what. Listen, I don't say this in a disrespectful. That's not what casual NBA fans go to games to see. And unless he's just putting highlight reels with lob catches and stuff, he's not flashy. And again, that's fine. I love non-flashy players, but that's what would sell in this situation, I think. Now, jerseys, I think he could sell a bunch of jerseys. I do think. I
think the merchandising thing is like absolutely a real fair point. But again, to me, like it's just like it's just like a smaller drop in the bucket of what like the value is of like hitting on a second round pick could be for your organization. And if you're prioritizing that like drop in the bucket, like positive stuff from Bronny over, a guy that you have higher on your board potentially, in terms of like on-court play, that's just like crazy to me. And I can't see that. Look, I think Bronny, like, I guess, like, didn't hurt himself this week. Probably like helped himself marginally, just by like not looking totally out of place. But yeah, I just think that like at the end of the day, it's for his basketball career. I think it would be more valuable for him to play against college guys next year, even though that's not going to happen. Like, it seems like that's not going to happen.
And before somebody comes, like, here's the thing. we didn't put the Bronny ISO cam on the broadcast. We didn't spend entire segments of the broadcast only talking about him and all of that. So I just like, this is what was like projected and what was talked about. And so if we're going to talk about the combine, we have no choice but to talk about Bronny James. And I want to emphasize, we both think there is a path to the NBA for this kid. It just, I think we both agree that one more year of college, assuming he's willing to be a college kid, I'm sure he could clean up with NIL, is the better path for him becoming a real long-time legitimate NBA basketball player, because he has that potential.
The other thing that we haven't talked about yet to move on from Bronny is guys that like maybe didn't help themselves at the combine. And we should probably name a few of those players real quick. I mean, anybody that you want to start out with?
I would listen. I like this kid, Trey Alexander. I didn't think looked great in the scrimmages.
Really struggled in the first. I thought he was like really, really bad in the first one. I haven't watched the second one. I don't think I remember him from the first game in the second one. So he played in the second one. So I haven't watched that one.
Yeah, he played in the game you haven't watched.
Yeah, but I think he was probably one of like the least effective guys out there. I thought Ulrich Chomchi was like not.
He just makes flash plays. Like that's what's exciting with him is he makes flash plays. I thought David Jones struggled. He also looked shorter than what I thought. He struggled a little bit. Listen, my guy Peyton Sanford didn't like shoot lights out, had a few air balls. This is one of those like where, and I know like I've sat here and gone best shooter in the draft and all of that stuff. I will take his 300 attempts this last year and over 100 attempts from the free throw line and his percentages on those over a couple day sample size. But if we're being honest, like he didn't he didn't go in there and just crush it and bang a bunch of shots. So I want to be fair. If I'm going to get on here and talk about him in such a positive light, I have to be fair when he doesn't, just go crazy as well.
Think that's right. I'm trying to think if anybody else like really kind of like popped in any significant way. Like I don't really think so. Everyone else, like I guess like Almanza, I thought like looked like he should probably try and find another option potentially.
Yeah, no, that was another guy too. I'm glad you brought him up. I've been a little lower on him throughout the entire process, going back to the beginning when people were talking about him as a first round pick. And I'm just like, I don't see it. And he just kept moving down my board and kept moving down my board. I didn't think he popped in these games. Again, here's the caveat I will give, Sam. These games are tough because you're trying to evaluate all 10 guys at the same time. Turn on I'll just use an Iowa game. Essentially, I'm watching Peyton Sanford and nobody else. It's really easy to evaluate him. In these, I'm trying to keep track of all 10 guys. And because they're wearing random numbers and stuff like that, it's even harder to know who's who at time. Like I'm looking down at my sheet. Okay, who's number whatever and stuff like that. So there are things that could be missed. Some of these guys maybe have played better than we thought, or some of the guys we highlighted earlier, maybe they didn't play as well. It is tough to not watch it 6-7 different times to really get a feel.
Yeah. And then like Nick Clifford, I thought didn't look super great in the game that I watched. And then looking at the box score for the fourth game, looks like he didn't play well again. I thought Jameer Watkins was quite poor yesterday. Looked better today. I thought.
Watkins was a guy I was really excited to watch. He's a guy I like. I'm really interested in, but I didn't think he popped in the first game I watched either. I don't remember focusing in as much as on him as the second. So it sounds like maybe I watched, I didn't catch the good game with my focus on him as much. Yeah.
And then, people got real excited about Trenton Flowers in the first game. I thought he was okay. Like, was just okay to me.
Yeah. I guess we should shout out Coleman Hawkins. I know he was like player of the game or whatever in the first game today, so I think he hit 3 threes if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is where we're at in terms of the combine. The thing is that, again, I don't think the combine moves the needle as much as what people like to see, and especially this year. Like there are outliers. People bring up Jalen Williams every year. Like Jalen Williams, the guy that like really helped himself and really went crazy. but like, I just don't think there wasn't anybody like that this year that popped. There wasn't anybody like that who like went from being, a borderline first. The thing about Jalen Williams was that like, he was a first round pick who went in, decided to be competitive, play the 5-on-5, and then blew up and was the best player in the 5-on-5, like very clearly. So like this year, the closest guys to the first round to me, like realistically, like removing my love for Jamal Shed and the fact that I will have a first round grade on him, even if nobody else will. Baylor Shireman, I think, is the only guy that played that I had a first round grade on, and that like anybody reasonably has a first round grade on. The next best player for me on my board, then you get into like Oso, Antonio Reeves, Justin Edwards, Cam Spencer, like Jurisic, Sanford, like guys like that, what I mean? And those guys are like outside the first round to me. So,
I mean, the thing that's like, we got some live action of things. The thing that's tough now is for the next month, everything's going to happen behind the scenes without us seeing it, right? Like now these guys are going to go from Chicago and they're going to start spraying all over the country to these individual workouts. And for a lot of them, all it takes is one of those. Like you just got to go into Sacramento and ball out and be the best player in that workout and shoot lights out or interview like crazy. And all of a sudden now you're in play for the Kings at pick whatever, like, so that's where I think a lot of these, whether they played good or bad or whatever, maybe some teams earned them, maybe Enrique Freeman earned himself some more individual workouts in that, team workouts in that sense this weekend. And so that's where a lot of these kids are going to be, the next month. That's what, and here's the other thing. We're 2 weeks away from the decision as well, right? I think it's is it the 29th? Maybe that's not right for them for stay or go.
Yep. It'll be like right around that day.
Yeah. 2 weeks from today. So, and one other thing, not combine, Nikola Topic, top 5 guy, hurt his knee in their playoff games over there. I haven't seen the replay. Sounded like
I have.
Bad, and he's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I've done a couple of calls and my impression is that it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So looked like a big deal is what I was saying. It's like non-contact supposedly. Is that right? When it happened?
Not really. Like he kind of got bumped and then like landed on it funny a little bit. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. Other guy worth noting, Tidjane Salaun, like while these guys were playing, combine basketball, he was playing in the playoffs over in France and he dropped 19 points and 7 rebounds. And I mean, this dude, I go back and forth. I yo-yo on Salaun more than any player in this class because this dude, like game on the line, like 3 5-point games, something like that. He takes a logo 3 and fucking drills it. Like as the shot clock's going down, I'm just like, what are we doing, Tidjane? Like, this is amazing. He's so fearless. Like the motor is incredibly high, super long, like 6'9", 6'10", 7'2" wingspan from what I've been told. He's shooting 40% on layups. And on some level, that's like almost a non-starter to me. And yet I just can't like
Sam. He's also only shooting 32% from 3. Like I'm with you.
You watch him and like he plays so hard and like he's a great athlete. And
he looks good. He's only 18 until August 10th. So like there's even more coming with all of that. Yeah. He's interesting. Really.
But then like you look at the like track record of stats like this basically for teenagers, it's not awesome. Like it's really not. But then you like consider he's on this crazy trajectory, right? Like where he's, didn't make the French national team in 2022, right? Like the under, what was that? I think that would have been like the 17s or 18s maybe. But then like people, the other thing people do is like, they'll be like, oh, like he can be the Giannis in this class, right? guys, like the level to which Giannis was awesome in Europe before he came over here is like pretty serious. He was like really, really good in that season before he came over. I'm trying to pull up the numbers as we talk. I think he averaged like he might average like 17 like points a game or something like that. No, it wasn't crazy. No, he averaged like 10 points per game. Wasn't bonkers. But he shot 46 from the field, 31 from 3, 72 from the line. So like not that far off of Salaun numbers. I thought that like he was way ahead of that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I haven't watched, I didn't scout Giannis, so I can't say. I haven't ever thought Giannis when watching Salaun in terms of that. But again, he plays hard, super physical, like built well so far. I'm trying to hash out the skill level while being cognizant of his age and the league he's being asked to play in as a professional. So
yeah, I ended up with him. I've ended up with Salaun in the lottery-ish range.
Yeah,
I would say.
No, I definitely have him in that range as well.
Yeah, could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower. But I will say this. Teams are way higher on Salaun, and I think I said this on the mock draft episode as well. When I talk to teams, they are higher on Salaun than what the public is.
Okay,
for sure.
Interesting.
They are definitely like he's a real interesting upside swing for them.
Yep.
Yeah, there are a couple of those guys, but we'll talk about this maybe on Friday when we don't have as much playoffs to get through in all likelihood. So we'll talk a little bit more draft. We'll talk a little bit more off-season previews as well. We're going to dig into some of those on Friday. Okay. So not sure what teams we'll do. I have to check to see kind of who we haven't done, who we have done, everything like that. I will let you guys know ahead of time. Bryce, tell the people where they can find their work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah. So at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, anything I'm putting out on Substack, scouting reports, mock draft, any of that stuff, you can just, if you follow me on Twitter, you can find it, or you can look it up Motor City Hoops over on Substack and find all the different work. If you want Pistons specific content, Pistons Pulse podcast with Amari Sankofa II. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecenie right here.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I have a mock draft up. Go read that. What else do I got for you? I have got this podcast, which we will have some stuff coming soon. We are doing prospect interviews coming up soon as well. I think that we have got the Alex Sarr one pretty close to up and edited. Could go live on Friday, Thursday, something like that. We will see, but it's 40 minutes of Alex Sarr and I breaking down tape together, kind of talking through his game and everything. So if you're a Hawks fan, if you're at the top of the draft, you'll want to tune into that one. I've recorded one other one of those, and I'm recording a few of them next week as well, as I should be through most of the draft guide by that point. So you're going to have a lot of those before the draft. So I'm really excited to get into recording those and kind of talking through some stuff with prospects, because I love really getting to know those guys and kind of seeing what they're seeing on the court. So really pumped about that. Going to get to share that stuff with you over on the YouTube channel, particularly. Those will also go live in full conversational format over on the podcast, we think. But that's all we've got. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.